Do I make any projects at home or only in the cave? It's funny that you asked that because, in general, no. However, I have an office at home. I've shot some pieces from there, here and there. I have an office at home, but I have never had a workbench. Sorry, I can't say never, but I don't have a workbench in my office at home. However, recently, very recently, we're moving some furniture around because Christmas is coming and house guests are coming, and we're adjusting our house to fit the folks that are arriving. We took a desk that was in one room, and in order to get it out of the way, I threw it in my office. And then I was like, oh my God, this is such a great thing to have. It's just a normal 30-inch high, 24-inch deep desk that was about probably 4 feet long. And I ended up spending evenings in my in my office, like working at that desk because it was a great surface for doing that. This is literally all just in the last few weeks. That desk had to move on and go be useful somewhere else because it was always allocated for that. But now I knew that I needed a desk in my house, and I knew what size it needed to be. So I just started searching for 24 by 72-inch table, and I found a high school lab table. Uh, that classic black top of the high school lab table, and it's 30 inches tall. So I put a pair of drawers into it. I didn't film that. That was just a side build for my own personal edification. But I'm really looking forward to having a wide expanse to be able to do some of the kind of stuff I like to do at home. Like I play around with paper props at home, or so I'll do some tea staining or light weathering of stuff. And I find it really lovely to be able to sit at a desk and sort of do that um, after hours instead of always coming here to do my builds. Um, so the answer to your question is, yeah, I am doing more of that. Hold on. The answer to your question, uh, do you uh, do you have any projects at home? Is yeah, I'm starting to, and I really like it. Um, is it specifically by design that you don't have the shop at home, or just the reality of life in the city? Oh, it is the reality of life in the city. Um, yeah, I live in the Mission District. But like, I have a garage, but I need that garage because parking is a nightmare in this neighborhood. Um, I would have put a shop in the garage if it wasn't the case, but I'm really glad that I found this place. I yeah. So it's the one of the issues that a lot of creative people have is about balancing their home life with their creative life. That is like, sometimes you'll be working and you want to just keep working for hours and hours and hours and hours, but you also have a family and you've got to go see them. And sometimes you feel a tension. And I spent a lot of my life sort of feeling like workshop work was stealing time somehow, that it was like, yeah, that like somehow that it was a zero-sum game, that by servicing my creative needs in the workshop, I was somehow neglecting somebody else's needs. And that's not the case. But it took me a long time to come to that understanding. And I have had shops in the house where I was less present while working on them than I've been more present in this shop with my family. I've been more present with my family while working here than I've been in shops that were in my own house. So, like, while I think that I always like, if you allowed me to wave a magic wand or tell a genie my dearest wish for a shop, I'd love to have a big shop that was directly attached to my house. Absolutely. And there are buildings in San Francisco I completely fantasize about being my shop house. Um, but the reality is, we all have to travel for our shops. Not everyone gets that luxury, and I don't have it right now, and it's not that bad. Let's see here. Adam Funkhauser asks, "How did you get involved with Zoobs?" Zoob is this amazing toy designed by Michael Joaquin Gray back in the mid '90s. It is it's a building toy based on ball and socket joints, and I was their director of R&D for about 18 months in the late '90s, and I got involved with them through Lucy Blackwell. Blackwell is a tiny British woman who we called Crumpet. That was her nickname. Who is also a amazing designer, an incredible designer. And I worked with Lucy on a bunch of commercials back in the mid 90s. The biggest thing we worked on together, we co-art directed a Coca-Cola commercial called Contraption. We spent 7 weeks building all the pieces for this together and designing it. It was really one of those totally rare occurrences where you get to work on something amazing and magnificent, and you get to see it all the way through the end. And it really, like, it's the best commercial I ever worked on, full stop. Lucy Blackwell went on to do some animation for Zoob, I think with Jimbo Madison, if I remember correctly, and called me up and was like, "Hey, I'm working for this startup and they need a director of R&D." And I told them that they should hire you. And I went in there a couple days later and they did. They hired me. And I worked for a startup for about 18 months, which for me was a nightmare. I didn't really like working there. I loved the people. I didn't like being only management. I was just managing people, and that I'm okay at that. I'm not amazing at it. But more than that, after about 6 months, I was sort of depressed and I couldn't figure out why I was so unhappy at work. And then I realized I work for a toy company and I never play with this toy. So I came up with this policy that every day after lunch, for an hour after lunch, I'm going to be in the builder's room playing with this toy, because if I'm going to be director of R&D, I better be playing with this every single day. And that was great. That was like learning that, understanding it, and then asserting it, and then doing it was a fantastic life lesson for me. Um, and yet still I had to move on. After another year after that, um, my friend Leo Garza ended up replacing me as director of R&D, and I moved on to episode 1 of Star Wars. One more question. All right, let's see what's coming here. Edward Timo asks a really interesting question. Do you have tips for making a survival kit? Yes. Yes, I do. A survival kit can't just be, I mean, first of all, a base level survival kit of some first aid and some complement of tools in emergencies. Those are absolutely easy to buy. A little saw that you can use if you needed it. That kind of stuff is out there in many, many different configurations. But I'm a believer in building a survival kit because, of course, I'm a little bit of a prepper, like any one of us makers, right? I think about the worst case scenarios. I want to know how to run them off at the pass. And when I assemble my go-to kits for survival, they always include stuff that they include stuff that's part of my point of view of fixing things, right? So don't put a tool in your survival kit you don't know how to use. Put a tool in your, like, it's better to have a tool you know how to use, even if it doesn't perfectly solve the problem, because you're going to be better with that thing than trying to figure out how to use this thing. I wish I had an example. It's just that I get asked this a lot, and I also think about first aid kits a lot. But the fact is like my approach to first aid is going to be different than somebody else's, because I get certain kinds of injuries and I deal with them in my way, but it's not a universal way. So I think of survival kits and first aid kits as being very personal items that require some personal investigation uh, in order to match them to your skills. Yeah, that is my tip for a survival kit. I love building survival kits. I hope I never need them. I hope you build them, and I also hope that you never need them. But if you do, they should be based upon your skill set, not upon a perceived idealized skill set. Yeah, I think that's a good place to stop. Dudes, dudettes, everybody, thank you so much for these awesome questions. And thanks for taking this time with me while I answered them. This is our last live stream of the year. If you'd like to become a tested patron, there's information in the below. Yeah, below, right? That's what we say. And I hope everybody has an excellent holiday full of cheer and generosity. Thank you guys so much. I am so grateful to be able to do this with you. And I will see you next year. Cheers. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.